Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guests today are Nancy Potok, Chief Statistician of the United States, Christina Ho, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Accounting Policy and Financial Transparency, U.S. Department of the Treasury, Robin Konkel, Attorney Advisor, Social Security Administration, and Angela Zutavern, Vice President with Booz Allen Hamilton. So we have been talking about great innovations with data science and government, along with some challenges that it can present. One of the challenges that I think people think about when they think about data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence is, wow, isn't that going to eliminate a lot of jobs? Once we can automate and maybe get robots to do things and make certain jobs more efficient, isn't that going to just do away with a lot of the jobs that people are currently doing? So I'll open. Christina, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it will definitely happen. But I also think that it creates opportunity for people to do new things. If I think about my career, I spent 2/3 of my career in the private sector before I joined the government, and I've changed career 2-3 times, jobs many times. One consistent theme in my career is reinventing myself. So I think that it's the same thing. I think there will probably be more pressure for people to be flexible and be willing to do that, and developing the skills to adapt and reinvent yourself, I think will be critical. I think the jobs makes are going to be very different. I have a 5-year-old. Sometimes I think about, I wonder what she's going to do when she grows up, because I think the jobs in her generation is going to be very different given all the technological advance we've had.
I totally agree with Christina, and you hear people out there kind of talking about these gloom and doom scenarios. I don't buy that. I fully believe that machine intelligence will create net new jobs. Now, as Christina said, that doesn't mean that those jobs won't change. In fact, computers are already better at certain tasks than people, and so anything like finding patterns or number crunching or organizing, computers can and should be doing that work, but people are and will remain better at structured problem solving, creating a vision, intelligence, creativity. So I like the thought of people being open-minded enough to develop new skill sets and launching a second or possibly even a third career. One example of this that's going on now is in the truck driving industry. So everybody talks about self-driving cars, but self-driving trucks are actually much further along. In fact, automated trucks are already making deliveries today. So I've seen a lot of those truck drivers go work with artificial intelligence startup companies, because you need the truck driving expertise in order to create and train those models. And so the flexibility and just courage that they're showing by jumping into a whole new field, I think will serve them very well.
I think that's absolutely true. Robin, I can't let this topic of reinventing yourself go by without talking to you, because you are an attorney.
Yes.
You have your law degree. You have a master's in public policy.
Yes.
Yet at Social Security, you're leading this effort around using predictive mathematical modeling to improve the outcome of these legal appeals cases that your organization oversees. So I got to ask you, what's a nice lawyer like you doing in predictive mathematical modeling?
Well, I like to explain to people what my role is at the agency as sort of a Rosetta Stone. So I have the legal expertise of having served multiple years doing regular attorney adjudication work at the appellate level. And I also have a background in quantitative analytics from multiple years of being a research assistant and then also my graduate school work. And so I'm well versed, and I can translate to the teams of economists and statisticians what the data really means from a program perspective, especially because a lot of the data assets that we have at Social Security are input by the people that are reviewing the decisions. So I can translate for our statistician teams, what was a person thinking when they put in a certain value? What do these values mean? And especially for some of our large-scale predictive efforts where we're trying to identify patterns underlying in cases so we can make our business process more efficient by capturing short-term specializations by having people do similar cases back to back, or our efforts to use modeling to identify the cases pending at the hearing level that can be issued fully favorable and don't require a hearing. That kind of work is really contingent on understanding the nuts and bolts of the legal adjudication process. And so I'm able to bring that. And with the predictive analytics, it's very important to understand which predictors can be incorporated into a model. And so when we're predicting what's happening, most of our predictors come from an earlier level of adjudication to predict what's going to happen at the level where we're trying to do the prediction. So making sure there's that clear divide between what's acceptable to be a predictor and what happens that we only capture at the adjudicative level, which can result in an overfitting model because that information won't be available for the cases that are pending. So really being able to understand the data assets we have, understand what those values mean, and translate for our technical-minded folks, it's a really important ability to triangulate between all of those teams.
So understanding sort of the context of the information as well as the capabilities that are available to you with some of these new modeling predictive modeling techniques.
Yes, absolutely.
So Nancy, you're chief statistician. Do you see that becoming more of a necessity to be able to have sort of that multi-dimensional approach to these kind of problems, or multi-dimensional skill set to attack these problems?
Absolutely. Most of the work that I see being done in this field is multidisciplinary. And in that, I don't mean that everyone on a team has to have every skill, but that people who are experts in different areas really have to come together to work collaboratively. So you need the subject matter experts, you need the data scientists. In many cases with the work I'm doing, you need statisticians. So there's room at the table for everybody, but the key is learning to work collaboratively so that everybody is contributing. It's no longer enough just to be an economist or a social scientist and do a survey. And so really, I think the educational community and academia have to get on board with this. They are starting to now. I am an adjunct professor at the Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration at the George Washington University here in DC. And I push very hard to really have these cross-school, cross-disciplinary types of activities taking place. And I see that picking up significantly at the educational level, so that when the students are coming out and they're stepping into the workforce, they do have that flexibility, they understand collaboration, they've worked in teams during their academic career, and that just really puts them at a great advantage for all of the things that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think that's essential. Do any of you other ladies have any knowledge or stories about schools, and are they, in your opinion, are the schools adapting their programs to the future needs of what we're going to need in the workforce, in the government, and probably in private sector as well?
I've heard some schools program in terms of the data scientist program. They're also adding, because context is important for data, so they're adding for those programs also a specialized area that the students can choose, so that they're not just proficient in terms of doing the data scientist type of thing, but also understand the context and make them more effective. So that, I think, is along the same line that Nancy was talking about.
I've seen, so there are certainly more data science type programs available today than there were in the past. I've seen a mix in terms of some of our most successful data scientists maybe majored in data science or computer science, but others majored in completely different areas like forestry or music majors, and they're just as successful. One key to training all data scientists around the world is open data sets. And so I think the open data is not only valuable for the mission challenges we can solve using it, but also for developing this next generation of data talent. And we couldn't do it without all of the open data sets that are out there. I don't know a single data scientist who hasn't learned on census data, for example. So that's a huge contributor to developing the talent for every type of job.
And so let's talk a little bit about developing talent. You are 4 brilliant women in the field of data science and machine learning, and you are the minority. You're the anomaly, right? It is a male, like all the STEM fields, particularly the harder sciences like computer science and mathematics. Women are still very much the minority, and minorities are very much still the minority. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journeys and how you decided to get into this field. You know, when I think about all the different technology fields, there are a few that even within that I think of as sort of male-oriented. You know, you're talking about big data, AI, machine learning, robotics, right? That's typically been territory for the guys, yet you are all succeeding brilliantly. So, you know, I'll start with you, Robin. How did you decide to get into this field? And you sort of didn't, because you went into law, but eventually you made your way into it.
Yeah. So when I first went to college, I hadn't taken any statistics courses at all. I was a public policy major, which is largely political science and economics. But every student that took public policy at Washington and Lee University had to also take political data analysis. And for me, political philosophy I never found really compelling, because ultimately when you're making an argument, you're appealing to authority, or you're trying to find somebody who has the same underlying ideology as you do. But when it comes to statistics and data analytics, you can cut through ideology and just provide hard evidence. And I took political data analysis right after the Bush v. Gore election. Prime opportunity to really understand the value of inferential statistics and where it can go wrong. And just when it comes to projections like that, what does too close to call mean? So it was a prime opportunity to really start to see political data analysis made it real for me. And having sort of that backdrop of how much it had become in the news at that point of time was definitely important as well.
And how about you, Nancy? I mean, were there mentors in your life? Was there an inspiring event that had you go into this field?
Yes, I would say so. My educational background was environmental studies as an undergraduate, and then public administration. With my master's degree, I came into the government under what was then the Presidential Management Intern Program, now Presidential Management Fellows, and really enjoyed being a generalist. And I worked in a couple of different agencies, but just prior to 2000, I landed at the Census Bureau. And I was deeply involved in the 2000 census and came to appreciate the power of data and how important it is. And if you're interested in public service and really making a difference in people's lives, data are incredibly powerful, especially government data. And so I was hooked, because I went into public service because I really wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And from that time onward, all of my career trajectory was related to how do we produce better, faster, high quality data that is important in people's lives, and get it into the places where it needs to be so it makes a difference and improves our country significantly. So as the chief statistician now, I think I really have a great bully pulpit, and also the levers to pull to make that happen, or at least make my contribution to making it happen across government. My mentors have just been people, like I say, that I worked for, who really encouraged me, helped me expand my thinking about this, and helped me sort of focus on my goals and stick with my passions and my dreams.
That's great. Christina, was there somebody, you mentioned that you have reinvented your career several times. Was there someone who inspired you to go into math, data, science?
So I wish I could say that I had such a clear vision right from the beginning. I would say that I kind of wander in terms of my career, early on. I changed career and jobs. I think ultimately I realized that I was looking for meaning. I needed a sense of mission for my work. I was successful. I was a trained accountant, CPA. I specialized in financial services industry and working for, corporate Fortune 500 and Big Four firm. But then it was until I started realizing that I really needed something that would make me feel like I'm making a difference, that I came to the government during the financial crisis. With the field right now, I think what got me here is really the enactment of the Data Act law 3 years ago. I feel that how I got here is because I thrive on changes, and I have such a deep passion to make things better, and I want to make the government better and serve the public better. So when I was asked to implement this law, and that's kind of how I started my journey here.
So Angela, we'll finish with you. And one of the things that Christina mentioned was wanting a sense of mission. I often hear when I ask women guests, what can we do to help girls enter STEM fields, that connecting it to the mission, helping them to understand what is possible within these fields is a key. Is that what drew you in?
Absolutely. I grew up thinking I was good at math, and it breaks my heart to hear about these studies where some girls at a very young age already feel like they're not good at math. And so there are many great programs out there, and we recently worked with STEM Girls for Social Good to do a data science hackathon for middle school age girls, and they worked on human trafficking data to figure out how to stop human trafficking. So talk about a sense of purpose, and they did very well. It gave them confidence, and I appreciated that growing up. My dad was a engineering and math major, and my mom was a statistics major, so they encouraged me to go into engineering. And then of course Booz Allen is very into all types of technology. So I've also had the benefit along the way of many mentors and sponsors, both men and women, and learned that you just can't go it alone. But I think it's really key for us to get to those girls at a young age and give them that experience and that confidence and the exposure to the missions that are out there.
I'd like to thank today's guests. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsradio.com and search Women of Washington.
On behalf of Booz Allen Hamilton, thank you for joining us. A link to the archive session will be sent to you shortly. This concludes our discussion. Thank you.